Hi, I'm Mrs. D Math. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to learn how to solve for the area of circles in 7th grade math. So let's go ahead and get started. We've already discussed the circumference of a circle, which is the perimeter or the distance around the circle. But the area of a circle is the space that's enclosed in a circle. So just like other shapes that you've learned, squares, rectangles, those kind of shapes, we also are going to use the same square units as our measurement, but we are finding the space inside of a circle. The formula for the area of a circle is pi times r squared. So we want to square the radius and multiply times pi. Again, we're either going to use 3.14 or 22 over 7 for pi. If it tells you to leave your answer in terms of pi, then you would just have pi as part of your answer. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of practice problems. So for this one, we want to find the area if the radius is 14 inches. So now we're going to go ahead and use our formula, area equals, and in this case, we want to use 22 over 7 for pi times 14 for the radius, and we have to square the radius. So once we plug it in, we just have to solve our formula here. Now, in this case, they usually tell you to use 22 over 7 to make it a little bit simpler. So I'm going to square 14, which is 196. I'm going to divide that by 7, and 196 divided by 7 is 28. So the last thing I have to do is multiply 28 times 22 in order to solve for the area. So here I can see that the area is approximately 616. This one tells me it's inches, and I have to square that. It does say square units. So this would be my final answer. Again, I'm going to use the approximate instead of equals because 3.14 or 22 over 7 is not exactly pi. So because pi is a never terminating or repeating decimal, that means 3.14 and 22 over 7 are just estimates. All right, so now we want to find the area if we know the diameter. So now we have to think back to a little bit of our circle information. And if the diameter is 16, that means that the radius is half of that distance. So 8 would be our radius. So now let's go ahead and plug this into our formula. And since it doesn't tell us what to use for pi, we're going to use 3.14. And this is going to be times the radius squared. All right, well, I know that 8 squared is 64. I'm going to just multiply 64 times 3.14. My answer is going to be approximately 296 hundredths. This one is meters squared. If they wanted me to leave my answer in terms of pi, then I would have just answered the area is 64 pi because I did 8 squared is 64, and instead of multiplying by 3.14, if they want you to leave in terms of pi, you would just leave the pi symbol as part of your answer. So for this last example, we do have to do a little bit of extra math because instead of asking for the area and giving us the diameter or the radius, they're giving us the circumference. So we're going to have to go back to a previous video where we learned the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So the first thing we have to do in this situation is divide 62.8 by pi, and we're going to use 3.14 for pi. So I can see here that when the circumference is 62.8, the diameter is 20. Which means what I need, the radius, is half of that, 10. So now I can fill in my formula and I can solve for the area. So the area equals, again, it doesn't tell us what to use, so we're going to put in 3.14 for pi times the radius squared. All right, so I know that 10 squared is 100. So I'm doing 3.14 times 100. And when I multiply by zeros, and I have a decimal here, it's the same thing as moving my decimal 2 places to the right. So in this case, the area is approximately 314. This would again be in units squared, but since it doesn't tell me the units on this one, we're just going to label it units squared. So sometimes you aren't given the exact information you need, and you have to use other formulas in order to work backwards to find some of the information and then plug it into the formula. I'm Mrs.D Math. Thanks for joining me today on how to find the area of circles in 7th grade math. Have a great day. Bye.